Okay, pattern number 2 of the 5 patterns of chronicity. Now this is the great big what if question. Now, there was something when I used to present workshops in the early days, because of the stuff that I present and the kind of people I present to, there's a lot of contentious stuff. The very nature of psychology and therapy generally is that every therapist has their own idea of the best way of working with people, which usually mismatches everyone else's idea of the best way of working with people. Or they have their school of psychotherapy they're loyal to, or the trainer that they're loyal to, and everyone else is wrong and we are the best ones. So if you develop something new, such as integral eye movement therapy, there will be people that will come along for no other reason than to pick a fight, which is an interesting reason to attend a workshop. But of course it gives me great quality of interaction with the group, because obviously in working with clients, sometimes we're going to be working with areas that are contentious, they're difficult to deal with. So the great big what if question looks like this. You present a generalization. For example, you say things like, most people can be helped with anxiety if they throw a juggling ball hand to hand. Very simple little thing. The great big what if question looks like this. Yes, but what if the person hasn't got any arms? So, and it's the great big what if question because it looks like this. I can give you 10,000, 100,000 examples of when something is incredibly useful. Obviously that will take a long time to do, but just to say, we'll generalize something and say, yeah, okay, 10,000 people have found this useful. What's going to happen is the person who's going to disagree with you will find a what if, they will find a counterexample that may never happen in the world. It may never have happened, but it's a hypothetical. And their one counterexample will demolish your generalization and the argument that you're presenting. Here is my favorite ever. This was in a metaphors workshop. It was one of the early days experimental workshops, and I was still developing the material and testing stuff out. I had quite a small group, bright people, very, very clever bunch of people, which is very useful to me because they ask questions and challenge in things that I wouldn't normally think about. And it's all about metaphors. Now, halfway through the first day, a hand goes up and I say, yes, do you have a question? And she said, yes, I have a question. I said, okay, what is the question? She said, what if? And that's always the sign. It begins with a what if. What if the client with the problem doesn't speak? I said, well, I'd ask them to speak. Yes, but what if they don't? What if they don't speak? I can't work with them because I'm not psychic. Yes, but what if they can't speak because they are non-verbal? Maybe they're deaf. Or they don't have a larynx. I was like, okay, now I've worked with a lot of clients in my time, I have to tell you, and I've never been in that situation ever. And I don't know anyone that has, apart from those that work with the mute and the deaf. She said, yeah, but what if they are? I said, look, if they don't speak, I'm not going to be doing metaphors with them, am I? I'm going to be doing something else, or I'm going to be doing... Yes, but... And she wouldn't let the question go. Yes, but what if? So the yes, but what if question takes the form of, I have a counterexample to your generalization. And I can watch people in training scenarios, and in client sessions too, struggling to think of a counterexample that they can come up with to disagree with one of the generalizations I've made. Now, if you want to see this in action, do any presentations, just speak in gross generalizations and watch what happens. You'll start to get what-if questions start emerging quite quickly. The easiest way to do this is just simply be opinionated, like I do. If you do opinionation in any group of people, people start generating counterexamples. It is a sign that their beliefs have been challenged or violated. You've tripped over their belief. So now what they're going to do is restore the balance, restore homeostasis by correcting you with something. Now recently I've started asking people, okay, so you're asking a what if question. Is that a real example that you're thinking of, or is it something you've just made up? Interestingly, I have yet to hear anyone tell me it's a real example. It's always something they've just made up. In which case I invite them to stick with the stuff that's really happening in the world rather than stuff that's not happening and keep it relevant to what we're doing here. Here was another what if question. This is brilliant. So this is another metaphors workshop. And a hand goes up. I go, okay, you have a question? She said, yeah, I have a question. All right, so what's the question? What if the problem is prenatal? Wait, what? What if the problem is prenatal and occurs in utero? I said, I'm sorry? Well, it is prenatal and occurs in utero. I said, okay, I hear the words, I just don't understand what they mean in the context in which you're using them. If it's prenatal and in utero, what do you mean by that? Well, if it's in utero, now I'm thinking, is she talking about that album? There was no. So what are you talking about? She says, well, if the trauma happens when the baby's in the womb. I said, does that happen? She said, it does. I said, has it ever happened for me? She said, I don't know. And I said, it hasn't. So I don't know what I would do. Well, what would you do? I don't know. Because it's a bit of a leap of faith to be saying your problem began in utero. Now, I was doing a presentation on metaphors, and somehow it gets hijacked and moved to trauma in the developing fetus, which is in no way connected with anything that was happening in that particular experimental workshop or the explorations that we were doing. Now, the reason that people do this is because there's a belief that that has been challenged by the generalization that you come up with. And it's the great big what if question. Now, there's a whole structure around how we work with this and the structure of the great big what if questions. And it's a key part of the IEMT practitioner training. So you want to go on the website and have a look for any of the training courses that are around. There's lots of really good trainers doing these courses now. And see if you want to know more about that. Ask one of the trainers for that. Right, we're going to move on to pattern 3.